Welcome back, NEC Hoops fans, to the NEC On the Run podcast on the NEC Overtime Pod. My name's Ron Radner. I'm joined by NEC blogger Ryan Peters. You can find him on Twitter at Pioneer_Pride. And we are ready to get going this week. Ryan, 3 weeks in, we have 6 teams separated by 1 game from first place. It is we're setting up for a nice tiebreaker march for the NEC staff. We can't wait. The games have been great. Let's start this week with Lemoyne. Lemoyne, first year in the NEC, pulls off their first 2-game weekend sweep, and they do it in an impressive fashion with a huge road win and then a convincing home win.
Yeah, credit to Nate Champion and his team. They're veterans. They start 5 seniors and then have Isaiah Salter, who's a senior himself, coming off the bench. So this is a really veteran group. And the thing that's really distinguishing them in league play is they're shooting 41% from 3. And they have a number of guys who could fill it up from behind the arc, whether it's, Kai Cleary or Nate McClure or Luke Sutherland as that stretch 4-man. They scored 1.27 points per possession in those 2 wins against Central and St. Francis. That's pretty impressive. And they're bombs away. They take almost more than half their shots from 3. So they know what they are. They're a team that can make perimeter jumpers. And when they are on like they were on last week, they could pull off that big upset in New Britain against Central Connecticut. And, credit to the Lemoyne for figuring out a way to win that game in regulation against Central Connecticut. The Blue Devils seemingly had the last shot in regulation, and I know Jordan Jones saw a seam. He tried to get to the rim, he missed a shot, and then credit to Kai Cleary and Nate McClure kind of connecting on that terrific fast break with less than 5 seconds left, and the finger roll to get the win with 1.2 seconds. Just a great finish for Lemoyne. And that veteran team, now they're rolling. They have some confidence. They're 1 game back in the standings at 3-2, and they're just like Stonehill last year. The veteran team coming in from the NE10, they're going to be a factor down the road here.
So one correction, that was actually DePersia who made that pass to McClure at the end of the game, the bounce pass. So let's just talk a little bit about the experience of this team that you touched on. So I'm looking at the roster now. You have Kai Cleary, Mike DePersia, Isaiah Salter, Luke Sutherland, Nate McClure, all grad students. So they've been through, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 of those 5 have played Division I basketball prior to coming on at Lemoyne, okay? So they have experience, they've been through big games, and going to Central Connecticut, an unbeaten team playing great basketball, they just didn't seem phased. They took every shot that Central gave them and came back and answered it. And then the next game against St. Francis, you're also, now, of course, they had an unreal shooting night, 18 3-pointers. It was the most 3-pointers in an NEC game since 1998. So they shot lights out. But in your mind, their performance against Central and then against a very young SFU team that has a ton of talent, but they're starting 4 freshmen and an underclassman starting lineup. How much does that experience play into what they can do here in their first year? There's like a Merrimack Stonehill-like quality to what they're doing right now from their first years?
Yeah, they have 22 and 23-year-olds, and when they're playing a St. Francis team with 18 and 19-year-olds, that's a big advantage. I think back to Wagner in the last year with Alex Morales and Elijah Ford and Will Martinez. Those were men among boys, and their experience obviously played a big role. And Lemoyne, if you have that experience like Merrimack did in their first year in the NEC, and then Stonehill last year in their first year, that plays up. That plays up, and they're going to be unfazed. And some of these guys previously do have Division I experience, so they're not new to this kind of level of competition. So they know what they're doing. So the experience is huge. But obviously, you need playmakers too, and they have great playmakers. Kai Cleary is a top 5 player in my opinion. He could get a shot anywhere on the floor. Luke Sutherland is a problem. He's a stretch 4-man who can make a perimeter bucket. So you got to go out and guard him. That's a problem. And DePersia, he is just, I love him as a point guard. doesn't turn the ball over, finds open teammates. He's a beast on the defensive end of the floor, great on the ball defender. I mean, they just got Isaiah Salters coming off the bench. I think he's underperformed up to this point in the season, but he's got another level in this game, which we actually saw. He had 15 points in one of the games this weekend. So, yeah, no, this team is going to be a factor. They have the experience. Nate Champion's been around the block a few times, as a player and a coach with this team. So look out, as a Sacred Heart alum, I'm relieved that they got that win in Lemoyne out of the way before Lemoyne caught fire, because now going up to Lemoyne is going to be a problem for a lot of these schools.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of pick your poison with Lemoyne. Who are you going to leave open? Who are you going to allow to take shots? If they're knocking down shots, they're tough to beat. There's probably going to be some games where the three's just not going to be there that day. Maybe those are the days where you can pick them off. But a fantastic start for Lemoyne in their first year in the NEC. Let's go to another hot team right now that you just mentioned, Sacred Heart. Sacred Heart now 4-1. Tied with Central for first place in the NEC standings. They seem to have now righted the ship after a bit of a struggle period at the end of non-conference play. We are going to talk to Joey Reilly later in the podcast, who has been red hot from three-point range. What's your impressions of your Pioneers at this point in the season? Now, I know they're dealing with some injuries.
They are.
But it hasn't seemed to, they haven't lost their stride here in the last couple of weeks.
They haven't. They've been playing well. They do need to get Nico Gillette healthy. We don't know when he's going to return. He's been dealing with injuries, and he tried to play up at Lemoyne, but he just couldn't move really well on the floor, so he only ended up playing 9 minutes in that game. They hope to get him back soon. I don't know about Tanner Thomas. He's got a bad back right now. He hasn't been progressing as they want him to. So I don't know if we're going to see him the rest of the year. They're hoping they could get him back, and obviously he'd be a big boost to that offense. But Joey Reilly's been kind of carrying the team right now. He's been shooting lights out from three. And because of Riley's shot making, he's scored at least 20 points in the last 3 games. Aiden Carpenter's really emerged of late. He's got 3 straight games in double figures. We already know how good Alex Sobel is, as that unique big man, that 5-man who could score in the low post. He could pass anywhere on the floor. He's great in transition. And the cast of characters, Solomon could get hot at various times. McGuire's done a better job lately of not turning the ball over. He was kind of a turnover machine early on, but he had five assists, only 2 turnovers against a tough Wagner defense on Sunday, and that certainly helped. So they're going to need Nico, I think, to compete with the Merrimacks and Central Connecticut's of the world. But right now, they're kind of righting the ship. They're winning the games they're supposed to win, and they're obviously holding serve at home. So I like the Pioneers the way they're looking, as long as they could get Nico Gillette back healthy, and that remains to be seen for the moment.
I think we talked about it in previous weeks about the depth of this team, the depth, the talent, the size of this team. What do you think, if Sacred Heart's healthy and firing on all cylinders, do you think they could be the best team in this league?
Yeah, I mean, they were the preseason number 1, and I think that was for a reason. I don't know if that was unanimous number 1. Was that unanimous?
I don't think so.
Maybe one team got voted as number 1 besides Sacred Heart, but most of the coaches agreed that this was the most complete roster when they had Nico Gillette and Tanner Thomas and all those guys, and we didn't know at that point how good Alex Sobel would be. Kyle McGee's been a factor, for the Pioneers as well. Yeah, if Nico Gillette comes back, I'm comfortable saying that it's them, Merrimack, and Central Connecticut at the top of this league, and it could go any which way in that NEC tournament. When you need a couple of possessions to go your way, when you need the bounce of your ball, they would actually be in contention if they have a fully healthy team at that point. But injuries happen too. Look at Wagner. Wagner's got 7 guys right now, and they're still figuring out that they're still playing well at 4-2. Or I'm sorry, 3-2. But yeah, Sacred Heart absolutely can be contended. There's no doubt in my mind. They're playing like a contender right now, but like I said, they're going to need Nico Gillette for the stretch run, especially when they have to play Central Connecticut and Merrimack in March.
Right. Sacred Heart did get 7 of the 9 first place votes in the preseason poll, so they were a clear favorite. One last thing on Sacred Heart, we're going to talk to Joey Reilly. Joey Reilly right now is in that 50, 40, 90 range. He's shooting over 50% from the field, 40% from 3, 90% from the line. I looked this one up. 13 players in the history of the NCAA have finished the season with those numbers. Now, Joey needs to do a little work getting to the line to meet the minimums because he hasn't gone to the line enough. He's probably about a half a free throw made per game short right now. But what he's done has been special to start league play. I mean, I love watching him. I love watching him free himself up for shots. He's got a nice quick release. It's so smooth. And when he is able to hit shots like that, how much does that open things up for the other players, the Carpenters, the Gallettes that can drive to the hoop, and then even Sobel, doing his work on the block.
It's huge because, Sacred Heart's problem in the past few years has been three-point shooting. They just haven't shot the ball particularly well from the perimeter. Last year, I believe they were 31% from deep, and that doesn't really get it done. You don't really have respect for the slashers or the interior players when you're only shooting 31% from deep. And that was with Reilly shooting 40% from three. But recently, Reilly's just been unconscious, and other Pioneers have shot well enough from three where when you have that element of being able to make perimeter shots, it just opens up your offense that much more, especially when you have now a post threat like Alex Sobel and a guy in Alex Sobel who could actually pass the ball. You could do a skip pass and find the open shooter. So when you have a Joey Reilly, and Riley's really good at moving without the ball, he could bring the ball up as a point guard, but he moves well without the ball. He found a corner against that Wagner zone last Sunday and was able to make a couple corner threes. He could get out in transition really quick and find his spot. And like you said, he has a quick release. So it's huge when Reilly can make shots, but not only Reilly, when Mike Sixsmith can make shots, and Nico Gillette, he's had success in the past. And Aiden Carpenter's done pretty well this year, shooting 33% from three, and Solomon can get hot at times. So they need more than Joey Reilly from deep. But when the Pioneers are making threes, when they're making at least maybe 35, 36% of their threes, this is a really tough offense to guard.
Another team that can really shoot the ball is FDU. Started out 0-2 this year. Now ran off 3 straight wins, right back in the mix now. We know that FDU can score the ball, but they seem to have turned things around a little bit on the other end of the floor. Now at 3-2, where do you see them right now? They've gotten, obviously, Ansley Almanor has been a huge offensive threat for them, but now Terrence Brown stepping up as a freshman guard back in the starting lineup now. I think that's been a big boost for the team.
It's been huge. He had 15, 7, and 3 assists against Stonehill. And, in that second half, Stonehill was right there in that game. He 3 or 4 times he knifed his way through that Stonehill zone and made tough runners in the lane, tough running layups. So he is a dynamic playmaker. He's been a boon to Jack Castleberry. I knew that Jack needed one of those freshmen to step up and become that 2-man for him. And Terrence Brown certainly is that guy right now. And you mentioned Almanor, 24 points against Stonehill. He had three pointers in the corners against that Stonehill zone, which is huge. And it was just like last year. Tobin Anderson's defense took a while to mature, to come into its own, and obviously they peaked at the right time. Where in March, against Texas Southern and Purdue and then FIU, they just played wonderful defense in the NCAA tournament. I think we're starting to see Jack Castleberry's group come together defensively a little bit better. 2 of the last 3 games, they've held their opponent under a point per possession. They don't have to be awesome defensively, but if they're good with that offense, they could also be in that top tier and compete. I think we're kind of sleeping a little bit on FDU because we like Merrimack and their elite defense. Central Connecticut's raised eyebrows with their hot start. Sacred Heart, they had the pedigree preseason. Now they're starting to play up to that level. We've kind of forgotten about FDU a little bit because maybe they didn't have the best non-conference season that we would have liked to see. But don't forget these guys have won big tournament games. Almanor, Joe Munden. I mean, all these guys. I mean, they're certainly accomplished. They're hungry. They obviously want to, they want to like kind of replicate the success from last year. And then Joel Emmanuel's really stepped up in his sophomore year. He's a man right now. He's a guy who could definitely be an all-conference player. He's actually one of the most efficient guys on that Knights team in terms of shooting the 2 and just being really efficient on the offensive glass. So no, this is a team that could definitely compete. We can't forget about them. They've taken care of business these last 3 games. They haven't beaten anyone huge yet, But they're going to host Sacred Heart next Saturday. That's going to be a big one for them, a big test for both teams. I don't know if Nico Glett will play in that game, but that'll be a good statement win if Jack Castleberry can somehow get the win there on that Saturday.
FDU starts 4-game homestand right now, opening up with Central Sacred Heart. So we will learn a lot over this week. Then we have LIU and Wagner. So 4 games. FDU, team that, if you watch them, they're never out of a game. That team can roll off 12 straight points in 2 minutes. I've seen it this year. They'll get into a deficit and then they'll work their way right back out of it. So FDU is a dangerous team. But let's talk about, we talked about them last week, the Wagner 7, right? The Seahawks 7, the Magnificent 7. And what a really nice win they had up at Merrimack. Merrimack had won 13 in a row at home, really tough place to play. And Wagner goes up there and gets the job done. Donald Copeland doing a great job this season. That improved them. They were in first place for a couple of days there before falling in a very competitive game against Sacred Heart on Sunday. But what were your thoughts watching that Merrimack Wagner game?
It was impressive. Merrimack took a 5-point lead late in that first half, and it kind of looked like that might be it for Wagner. Merrimack would start to go on a little bit of a run and just continue to build up that separation and get a comfortable win at home. But they opened the second half on a 12-2 run. And I was just so impressed. These 7 guys complement each other so well. You have the elite slasher and transition guy in Melvin Council. You have the bully ball 4-man who's great in the mid range in Teron Allen. Keontae Lewis is your bruiser down low. Kelton's that stretch 4-man who also could run the floor. Julian Brown's a playmaker. He could get a shot anywhere on the floor and he could make it. He's very efficient. And then Javier Esquer is that high IQ point guard. And then even Sek Zongo, we saw 15 and 7 out of him against Merrimack. He was great at just using his athleticism to find seams in that zone and finish. He made 3 buckets on cuts against that Merrimack zone. So his athleticism, and he's really good on the defensive glass. These 7 guys, it's a thin team, but they all complement each other really, really well. That's what I love about this team. And they're all bought in. You're always going to be bought in if you're under Donald Copeland or Bashir Mason or those guys. Like they're bought in on the defensive end. They did just enough to kind of slow Jordan Durkak down in that game. Durkak only had 8 points on 3 of 9 shooting, and that's certainly an off night for him. But they're a live team for sure. I mean, they're obviously. I would love to see him to get one or 2 more guys into that rotation if Zay Blake could ever come back, or maybe Churchill Bounds gives him a little more depth down low. But they're running really well with the 7 guys right now. Obviously, it's precariously thin. They can't afford another injury or 2, but this is a really good group of 7, and I'm sure Donald Copeland is pleased with his team being now 3-2, going into a big home matchup against Merrimack on Thursday.
Yeah, rematch immediately here. I think Sek Zongo is one of the great stories in the NEC this year. Probably a player projected to be towards the back end, if at all, in the Wagner rotation when the season started. Right, and now opportunity came for him, and he's kind of taken the ball and run with it. And as you said, has become a key part of the rotation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he has to. He's the 7th man. Like,
but he's doing it. Like, he's getting the job done. He's producing.
He's doing it. Yeah, I mean, there's been some great teams that have only had like 6 or 7 guys in the rotation. I think back to Greg Horenda's second championship. He only had 6 guys on that, and then but that was he had Darnell Edge and Jaleel Jenkins and Mike Holloway and Caleb Bishop. I mean, those are and Elijah Williams. I mean, those are great players. But Copeland is making it work with these 7. Credit to him. Great job by this coaching staff to coach these guys up, get them to buy into their role, and to kind of keep them healthy. Because it's not easy. It's not easy when you only have 7 guys for practice. You can't really run a lot of live stuff. You just got to keep your guys healthy and hope for the best. And these guys are adapting really well. And like I said, I hope they could get 1 or 2 more guys to join that rotation. And then I think Wagner is going to be a real threat here come February and March.
I think the Wagner coaches are staying in good shape because they need them in practice. All right,
Copeland's practicing too.
All right, let's meet up with Joey Reilly now and hear what the one of the NEC's hottest players right now has to say. Welcome, NEC fans, to the NEC On the Run podcast on the NEC Overtime Pod. Today's guest with myself and Ryan Peters, Sacred Heart grad student guard, Joey Reilly. Joey, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, Joey. So you come off a very solid win for the Pios against a really hot Wagner team on Sunday. Offense was at a premium in this game. Knowing that you're playing against a Wagner team that's known for its tough on the ball defense, how did your team score enough points to get this win?
We just stayed resilient. We have a lot of really dynamic offensive personnel. We knew going into the game that Wagner is a very good defensive team this year, as they always are. So we're probably going to go through a couple droughts, scoring wise. I mean, they do a good job of kind of keeping you on your toes, switching between man and zone. So we just had to have faith in our game plan, and even when we went through short spells where the ball wasn't going in the basket, just kind of stick with our offensive execution and keep believing in each other, taking quality shots. And we knew at the end of the day, we would put some points on the board.
Yeah, you made 4 threes in that game against Wagner, Joey, all in the catch and shoot variety. And now you're a red hot 21 of 38 from deep in your last 7. I know you struggled a bit with your perimeter shot early in the year. After that BU game at home where you guys lost, you were around 25% from three, which is certainly uncharacteristic given your talents. With respect to that, did you attribute that cold start to something in particular, maybe mechanical, or is that just college basketball? Sometimes you're hot and sometimes you're not.
It's just the nature of the game. I mean, sometimes you make a lot of shots, sometimes the ball just doesn't go in. And as a shooter, my mindset, if I go through a spell where I'm not making a percentage of shots that I'm normally making, my mindset is that I got a lot of makes coming my way, which has been the case lately. And I think that if you're a great shooter over a large sample size and over a longer period of time, your statistical output is going to reflect your kind of intrinsic value as a shooter. So yeah, it's just kind of ups and downs of the game. And yeah, nothing mechanical. It just wasn't really falling. And yeah, as a shooter, I mean, I'm never going to lose confidence in my shot. You just gotta keep shooting, and they're going to fall eventually.
Yeah, you're certainly up right now. But to your credit, when you were down with your perimeter shot, you've been wonderfully efficient the whole season at the rim. You're 75% this year at the rim. That part of your game has really grown. How have you gotten to that evolution where you're now a threat inside the arc as well?
Yeah, just putting in a lot of work. I mean, kind of finishing around the rim and being selective, knowing when. I think a lot of people kind of just expect me to really hunt down threes. So then when people are really running me off the line, I can get some good angles, and also kind of being a threat to pass it when you get in the paint. Um, I have I've had a pretty good assist to turnover ratio throughout my career. So I think that being a threat when I get in the paint of whether I'm going to pass it out or shoot has benefited me. Yeah, and then just putting in the work. And yeah, I've been able to make a lot of shots from two this year, which is definitely nice.
There's a great connection between Coach Latina and the Reilly family. Many people out there know that your uncle Luke coached you at East Catholic, and obviously Luke and Coach Latina were teammates at South Catholic in Connecticut. I know Coach Latina recruited you out of high school when you elected to go to Holy Cross. Has he ever gotten on your case and said, like, come on, Joey, you should have just gone to Sacred Heart right from the get-go?
No, he was really happy when I went to Holy Cross in the first place, and at the time, it was a decision that I was very comfortable with. Obviously, I'm super happy that I ended up here, and everything since I've been here has been amazing. It's been an amazing experience. But yeah, it's great playing for a coach who I have a close relationship with, and yeah, I'm very grateful for the opportunity that Coach Latina and the rest of the staff here has given me, and yeah, everything just worked out exactly how it was supposed to.
Hey, Joey, let's talk a little bit about your shooting. You're on this hot streak right now. It's been fun to watch. Let's have a little fun here. If I gave you 100 shots, 100 threes, 20 from each spot in a practice, how many of those are you going to can?
In a practice setting with no defense, catch and shoot.
No defense.
Rapid fire.
Fire up.
I'm minimum of 80, I think. I think that catch and shoot, yeah, just over a large sample size, like I said. I mean, if you catch me on an off day, it might be in the 70s. You catch me on a hot day, it could be in the 90s. But yeah, on an average day, I'm saying around the 80 mark.
Anybody beating you on your team?
On my team, we got some great shooters. I mean, I don't think so, but we got some guys where if they're hot, I mean, Kyle McGee, Mike Sixsmith, uh, Raheem Solomon, those guys can really shoot it. But I mean, of course, I'm going to say myself, but on any day, like we got some real good shooters.
So I was watching some of your highlights from the other night, and I see how hard you work to find those openings. How much of being a great shooter is finding the gaps in the defense, and also how much of Sacred Heart's game plan is designed to get you those good looks?
Yeah, we put in a couple plays lately to kind of free me up and get me some looks. I mean, we have a great offensive package full of plays, and we have so many weapons. Like we got a lot of our plays aren't really designed just to kind of look for one person. It's kind of a progression where getting me a three or getting Nico a drive or getting Sobel a paint touch, like those are all really, really good offensive actions for our team. So a lot of our plays is kind of a progression where we have multiple things we can look for. And yeah, I mean, moving without the ball has been something that I've kind of got a knack for over the years of just as an undersized guard, you can really shoot it. People are really trying to run you off the line. So I think that moving more and really expanding my range, I think that one thing that's helped me out this year has been taking some deeper threes and just to be able to get them off. And sometimes as an undersized guard, shooting a rhythm three a couple feet off the line can be easier than shooting toe on the line with a 6'9" guy closing out. So yeah, I think those have helped me out this year.
Joey, last question. You're in a good spot right now after Sunday's win, 4-1, tied for first in the standings. To get over the hump, to win the league in the regular season, win that title, what does Sacred Heart need to do?
We just got to keep getting better every day. We have some great personnel. We have a great staff putting together some great scouting reports. So we just got to take it day by day, one game at a time. Sometimes if you look too far ahead in the future, it can take your focus away from what needs to be done in the present moment. So we're just focused on having a great practice tomorrow. We're heading down to Pennsylvania on Thursday. We got a real important game there, and then we got FDU after that. So we're just focused on those two games, getting a win, and then enjoying it because college basketball is a beautiful thing. We got a lot of upperclassmen on the team who only have so many games left. So we're really focused on winning and trying to put ourselves in the best position to win the championship. But I think that we got a lot of guys who really value spending time together and having fun because for a lot of us, this is our last ride. So we're just enjoying every second of it, soaking it all up. And we have enough talent. So we're just going to work hard and let the results take care of themselves.
College basketball is a beautiful thing. It's perfectly said. Thanks, Joey, for providing us your insights today. This was a great interview. We wish you the best of luck for the remainder of the season, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to you again before the end of the season.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. This was great.
All right. For Ryan Peters, this was Joey Reilly on the NEC Overtime Pod interview. Thanks to Joey Reilly for taking some time to talk to myself and Ryan today. Ryan, I thought that was a really good interview. Real cerebral player. He kind of got into the mechanics of what make a great shooter and what Sacred Heart does to enable him to get those good looks.
I mean, listen, he's 6 feet tall, 170 pounds. You would not mistake him to be an elite athlete, obviously. So when you've scored 1,800 points in high school and now you're dropping 20 points, on average in NEC games, you have to be really skilled, like high IQ guy, a guy who knows how to move without the ball, a guy who just knows, how to hit mid-range jumpers. He's got a quick release. Now, he's a really smart, cerebral player. The thing that impressed me the most is he thinks on average he'd make 80 of 100 in practice.
Ryan, how many are you knocking down out of 100?
Oh, God. Right now, off the couch, I probably I'll give myself 35.
I can beat that. I think I can beat 35.
Maybe 40. I don't know. Maybe I'm shortchanging myself, but yeah. if I ever have any free time again, after maybe one of my daughter's travel games, I'll go behind the arc and I'll ask one of the girls to feed me 100 balls, and we'll see how I do.
Maybe I don't beat you, but I can beat your daughter in the U10 basketball. I think I can do that. All right,
She doesn't have 3-point range quite yet.
It'll come soon. All right, Ryan, let's move on to our NEC TV games this week. 2 on the slate. First up, our first ESPNU game of the season. It's a good one. FDU hosting Central Connecticut, 5 p.m. on Thursday. Ryan, this is sort of as we talked about it, red hot FDU team and a Central team that's been everything, we thought they would be in more.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun matchup. The thing that I think whoever can control the glass is going to be in control of this game. The FDU defense has been impressive and, grabbing nearly 80% of their opponents' misses, which is first in the NEC. But we all know how well, Central Connecticut could get after it on the glass, with Jaden Brown and, Alan Jean Rose and those guys. So I'm really going to be looking at the rebounding battle here. But also, too, how are they going to guard Ansley Almanor? Like, are you going to put Alan Jean Rose on him? That's going to be a fun matchup if that's the case. I probably would do that because Jean Rose could run around the perimeter with Almanor. And then you put Jaden Brown against Joel, Emmanuel. I mean, those are going to be 2 fun matchups in the front court to kind of watch for this game.
Our second NEC TV game of the week is on ESPN Plus this Saturday at 4 p.m. Merrimack squad firmly in contention right at the top of the NEC standings against the young St. Francis University squad, who will play well at home. We know that. Merrimack has to take the long trip out there. What are you seeing from this one?
Well, Joe Gallo's career 6-1 against St. Francis, and I think he's 4-0 in Loretto. So he's been doing just fine traveling out to Loretto, PA, and beating the Red Flash. So we'll see if he can continue that streak. For me, I'm fascinated to see how Eli Wilborn, the great freshman for SFU, how he does against his zone. You look at the analytics, he hasn't really faced his zone yet. So how is Rob Krimmel going to feature him against that tough 2-3 zone? How is he going to get his looks? I can imagine he's going to try to get in the middle of that zone and try to get, interior touches that way. Because I know he could make that jumper at the free throw line. He could drive it a little bit. It's going to be very interesting to see how that develops. And, Jordan Durkak had a near triple-double in his last game against Stonehill, 12, 11, and 8. And so, you get Durkak rolling against that St. Francis defense. That's going to be a problem for Rob Krimmel. And that Merrimack zone, they forced 22 turnovers in that Stonehill win. It's been a bit of a problem for that young Red Flash team. They haven't been able to protect the ball that well. 22% of their possessions have led to a turnover. That's one of the highest rates in the country. So they really need to take care of the basketball. Easier said than done against that Merrimack zone, but that certainly bears watching.
Along with our 2 television games this week, there'll be 6 other games on NEC Front Row and on the NEC On the Run series of streaming apps. You can catch those, as always, for free. That'll do it for this week's NEC On the Run podcast. Thanks to Joey Reilly from Sacred Heart for taking time out of his schedule to join us, and to my partner in crime here, Ryan Peters. We will be back next week for week 4 of NEC On the Run.